All right, good morning. Happy Monday and welcome to week 5. So we have just this week and then next week, and we are going to be done. So just real quick, I'm going to be out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I will probably post um, the next week's videos like on Friday or something like that. And so that you have those. But I'll still be available. Like I'll come back Thursday and Friday and be available to if you have any questions or anything like that. But I am going on vacation with my family for a few days. We have a lake house up in North Carolina, and we're going to go spend some time up there. So please let me know if you have any questions. Before I leave, I'll be here again until Friday, and then I'll be back again the following Thursday. And then the course closes on Friday. So please make sure that you are staying up on your assignments. However, there won't be any new assignments assigned next week, so you won't have to worry about that. Okay, so this week's our focus is more like it's still on excuse me, lost my train of thought there for a second, is on adversity in the workplace. So this is the one thing that can cause companies a lot of money. If you're working in a team and yet you're coming into conflict. Whereas, conflict is absolutely inevitable when you work with people. It's inevitable in relationships, in family dynamics, at the workplace, anywhere you go when people are coming together, there's going to be conflict. And a lot of times people hear the word conflict and it already stirs up like this negative connotation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. It's not like you're going to war. Conflict is just a difference of opinion. You're seeing something from a different perspective than somebody else. And when you're self-aware of knowing that people have different ways that they handle conflict, then that puts you in a position to be able to overcome those potential conflicts, a little quicker, a little bit more on the healthy side. When people have like their blinders on and they can only see things from their perspective and they only, their way is like the only way that it can be done. And I've dealt with people like that. I have family members like that, I'm sure that we have all had, those kind of people in our lives, whether it's a team or a club or an organization, maybe in class, in a personal relationship or at work or something like that. Yeah, you're going to have conflict. So one of the things that companies have invested in is different types of like personality type assessments that can be administered to their team to see how people are handling conflict. And this is probably this is way, way before your time, but there was once a book that came out a long time ago. It was called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And it was talking about how people just talk in different languages. And when you don't realize that your partner is talking in one language and you're talking in another, it can cause unnecessary and prolonged conflict. And the same is true in the workforce. So if, for example, like if, I'm sure we've all heard of love languages. When you know what your love language is, then you can tell your partner, this is how I like to, be shown affection. This is how I feel loved. But there's also fight languages, and that's something that's relatively new. So if you have a particular fight language, for example, maybe you're somebody who just likes to hash it out, maybe you get like super heated, but then it passes and you're like, hey, I just need to get this done with so we can put it behind us. Or, maybe you're someone who's introspective that needs to kind of take all the information in. You kind of want to think about it before you say anything. You're not going to say stuff in the heat of the moment, but you need to kind of think about it, take some space. And if you and your partner have those different type of languages, then it can cause unnecessary stress and prolonged conflict because, one person over here is trying to resolve the conflict. You're over here trying to resolve it in a different way, and you guys aren't coming together. And that's what happens in the workforce. And this is something that costs companies a lot of money because if you are in the middle of conflict versus working towards the shared goal, whatever it may be, then you're not being as productive as you could be, and it could maybe have to extend a deadline on a project that you're working on. So one of the most wide and well-renowned instruments or assessments that is used in the workforce is called the TKI. That stands for the Thomas Kilmann instrument, Thomas Kilmann, conflict mode. It goes by a couple different names, but the TKI is super easy to administer. You don't have to have like a particular certification or license to be able to do it. It takes only like 20 minutes or so to actually do the assessment. It's only like 30 questions. And then to kind of see where what the results say to you. So in modules under adversity, You can find the TKI if you'd like to do it. It's not an assignment. You don't necessarily have to, but it would maybe help you to understand yourself. So you take this assessment, there's 30 questions, well, not questions, there's 30 statements, and they're paired statements. And so what it does is it asks you to read those two statements. And if you were in that particular position, how would you respond, A or B? Now, there's going to be several where you're going to be like, oh, A all the way, or B, there might be like, hey, I wouldn't do either one. That's okay. You want to pick the one that you would most likely do if you were in that situation. And then you tally up your results. And again, the instructions and everything is in the module for you guys. But then you'll tally up your results, and then you'll see where you kind of scored the highest. There's 5 categories according to the TKI on how people handle conflict. There's competing, compromising, collaborating, accommodating, and avoiding. Now, there's no right or wrong way. And when you do the assessment, and you might see that you scored really high in one category, or maybe you scored high in a couple categories, that's good, because that shows that you are kind of well-rounded. You don't have to tackle every single problem or conflict in the same manner. So when you are self-aware and growth happens in the self-reflection and in the uncomfortable zone, you start to realize that, hey, this is a particular situation that maybe I really need to take charge, and I need to have a competing conflict style. Maybe it's an emergency. You don't have time to really sit down with everybody and like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's get everybody's input. Maybe it's something that somebody needs to make a snap decision, like, oh my gosh, we've got to get this done. Maybe it's an emergency as far as you're coming up against a deadline, or it could be like, an actual physical emergency that somebody needs to just take charge. And like, it doesn't really matter when anybody else is thinking this is for the safety of everybody involved. Maybe that's when a competing style would most likely be the best way to handle that. Maybe it's a topic you don't really care about. And people are super passionate about certain things and you're not. And you're just like, ugh, if I get in there and start, maybe I have a certain way that I feel, but it really doesn't affect me, whether this person sees my point of view or not, maybe then an avoiding kind of style would be the best way. So my example for that, and this is a true story. So my mother was asking me, she's like, hypothetically, if you won the lottery, would you want to get like the payments, or would you just take the lump sum? And I was like, I don't know, I'd probably just take the payments. And she's like, oh my gosh, no, you need to take the lump sum. And I was like, okay, why did you ask my opinion if you were just going to give it to me? And it's my mom, so it's, normally we take a lot of leeway with each other. We're really good friends. We have a great relationship. But at the same time, too, I'm like, why are you attacking me? And she was like, you would be so mad at me if I won the lottery and then I took payments and then I died. And you wouldn't get that money. It would just go back to the state. And I'm like, well, Mom, I think I'd be more upset about the fact that you died, And she's like, no, you'd be so mad. And I was like, actually, I wouldn't. It's not my money, and I wouldn't be thinking about that. She got so heated. She's like, no, you would take the loan. You'd be so mad at me. You'd be so mad. And finally, I was like, whoa, okay, lady, fine. If I win the lottery, I guess I'd probably have to start buying lottery tickets and playing lottery, but I will take a lump sum. And so that was a way to diffuse that conflict. Because if I went on and died on this hill over whether it was a lump sum or payments, I could care less because I don't play the lottery. And actually, neither does she. So it was like, this is a stupid argument that we're having because you don't even play. If this was something that you were passionate about, I can understand you wanting to die on this hill because you're like, nope, I'm going to stand my ground. And, so if you have things that you feel that way about, absolutely. But if it's something like that, like in my example, like, okay, fine, I'll take the lump sum, and, she was like, well, would you? And I'm like, no, but, I'm going to, this argument is over. This is the silliest, she was getting really heated. So, there's going to be times like that in work conflict, or maybe like, I just don't really care, and your teammates who are maybe not as self-aware could absolutely, they could see that as, you just not being invested or you're indifferent. But, if you verbalize, like, this doesn't really affect me one way or the other. If we go to lunch at Chili's or Applebee's, like, I don't care. I'll go wherever. But if you're dead set, like you hate one or the other, then you know what? Voice your concerns. But, on a deeper level, if you're working on a project with people and everybody's bringing in their different perspectives, and this is why diversity in the workplace is so important, because you're getting a ton of different perspectives from different people's experiences. which makes the experience of working in that group more well-rounded. You know, you have people from all different walks of life, different ethnicities, genders, experiences, maybe demographic locations, and you can bring that all together and you get a richer and deeper experience for the project, which could be better for the client or whatever it is that you're working on. Unless you are just going to be a one-man band and have no one that you're working with or no organization, you're going to have your own business and you're not going to have vendors or suppliers or anything like that, you are going to find yourself working in a team in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So when you find yourself in conflict, you being the self-aware person can step out and say, okay, what's going on? How are people handling it? Is this something that I need to be passionate about? Is this something that I don't really care about? You know, maybe we all need to, you know, collaborate and come together on a consensus. Maybe we need to accommodate where we're kind of giving and taking. You know, the idea ideally would be that everybody comes out on top. Everybody wins and feels like, you know, that they maybe had to concede some certain things, but at the end they got, you know, what they wanted, which was to move forward with the project or the deadline or whatever it is that you're working on. And if you can handle conflict in a healthy, peaceful way, you could even come together tighter and closer as a team, which would be the ultimate goal. So companies will hire consultants that will come in and do these kind of assessments, and then they might create some kind of like curriculum, some training and development that will help people understand each other and come, you know, kind of surpass that. Because if you're just sitting in conflict and you're stalled and you're not moving forward, which is going to cost the company money. And that's not what they're looking to do. So that is the TKI. Again, it's in the modules. It's just a nice little assessment to do if you wanted to take it. If you and you get your results, if you want to talk to me about it, please shoot me an email or, you know, a Canvas notification or make an appointment with me on Handshake. And, you know, we can sit down and talk about your results. All right, the next thing, internships. So you have 2 assignments this week. One is discussion question 5, and then the other one is the internship acknowledgement form. So this is the last year that they're doing any kind of deferred credit. So you need to acknowledge the fact that you have to have an internship. If you are in the School of Business, if you have a major that is in the School of Business, which is why you're in this class, that you are going to have an internship. Now, your internship as part of your graduation requirement has to be approved by Takara Graham before you start your internship. So this has happened to people, so don't let this happen to you. Don't just go get one and then start working, but, oh, I got to go tell Takara, you know. They won't, that's called retroactive, and they will not approve it, and you will have to do another one. Now, having multiple internships is not a bad idea, but if you're looking to, you know, get the internship for the credit, you absolutely have to have it approved by Takara Graham. It has to be, you know, related to your major. It has to be something that, you know, with a company, and there's a whole lot of different stipulations, which I'm unsure of what they are. That's her field. That's what she does all day, every day. She is our internship guru. So if you don't know who she is, she's on the 2nd floor of Becker, and you can make an appointment with her on Handshake as well. When you log into Handshake, again, if you have a major that's in the School of Business, you go to Handshake, and then it's like career services, and it's like new appointment, and then you'll see her and I, and you can make an appointment with me if you have career questions or class questions, but anything internship wise needs to go through her. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. But you do need to sign that form saying that you understand and you acknowledge that you are required to have an internship at some point in time during your academic career as a graduation requirement. Now, they used to defer credit for the summer. They are no longer doing that. And that was something that just rolled out after this course started. So it does say on there, it talks about deferred credit, but they just don't do that anymore. So let's make sure that all you have to do is just, for that assignment, it's just a text. You can just sign your name and date, and that is totally sufficient. And then discussion question 5. And that are all the assignments that we have. So if you've been up to date on your assignments, this is the last week that you'll have anything new. If you are behind, I know several of you are working to get caught up, you have until next Friday. So you still have 2 weeks. And again, I'm not going to assign anything new next week. So this is really kind of like the end of it. The elevator pitches were assigned last week. I'm going to start going through those. Again, that was just you videoing them and sending them to me. It's not something that you have to do in front of anybody. If this was an in-person class, then yes, you'd be doing them in front of people, but make sure that you are practicing that, because you are going to be using that when you're meeting people, when you're networking and all that kind of stuff. And, we went a lot, we went into networking about 2 weeks ago. So that's not also part of like this week's focus, but I think we touched on it quite a bit 2 weeks ago. So that's it for this week. I'm going to post this, and then I'm going to come right back and we're going to talk about 2 more interview questions that are super, super duper important. And I hope that you enjoy those. And if you have any questions, always let me know. You can email me. You can do a Canvas chat, or also make an appointment with me on Handshake. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great one.